And so right now we've got MMA Junkie Podcast Host, Gorgeous George of us, back on Fightlete.com, the Fightlete Report, great friend of the show. We appreciate you. So how are you doing tonight?
I am very agitated right now. And I know about half an hour ago, I was like, I'm starting to wind down because it's just been like a long year. I can't even say it's been a long day, a long Monday, a long weekend. It's been a long, can we cuss?
No, sure. Go ahead. You're welcome to.
Long fucking year, you know what I mean?
We're way beyond, I was just going to say, we're way beyond the Illinois media school, so.
Yeah, except all that, I'm going to bottle it into some energy, so we're going to have some fun today. So slowly I'll come out of my agitated state, and I'm going to, we're going to talk some MMA, and then you and I will obviously, wind down our days and get some good rest, and we'll look back and say, we put out a good show tonight.
Yeah.
So let's get to it, my friend.
For sure, it's not always like the quality, quality over quantity, and so I obviously next week we got a huge card for UFC that had put together, even though it doesn't even have the main event. Like, that is crazy that they're able to put up such a great fight night to close out the year as well. If you want to just talk about that briefly.
Yeah, so UFC 256 was pretty amazing. 10 fights. It wasn't really like a plethora of star power, I guess, but they did have ranked fighters, so that was good. And the UFC's in a transition stage, and they're being very open and transparent about the fact that they're willing to move on from, some of their big names that are aging and just no longer contending, and they're into producing new young talent. And right now we have two guys in the flyweight division, a division that the UFC put off to the side for a couple years, and now I think they're realizing what a mistake they did. Because the talent was out there. I mean, it's no secret. In boxing, 125 pounds, there's some great fighters at that weight class. There's a lot of great fighters that wind up as super middleweight. Super middleweights, super welterweights, junior welterweights, everything that start off, as featherweights and lightweights in boxing. So in that range of 118, 125, 130, and to think that couldn't happen in MMA was nuts. It was ludicrous. It was a big mistake by the UFC. Anyway, let's get to Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. I expected a great fight. Both guys are athletic. Both guys are good on the ground. Both guys are good on the feet. So I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I was tickled pink. I had beers. I was buzzed. I was doing a watch along with my brother, and I had a good time. And I can't wait to see the second one. But come on, let's treat these guys like human beings. You know what I mean? These guys aren't horses. They need to decompress a little bit. They just had back-to-back camps, back-to-back weight cuts. Not even so much a camp. I mean, how much of a camp can you have in 3 weeks? But still, you had to get some training in, and you just don't let your body heal, from their wins over Alex Perez and Brandon Royval, respectively. So now, give them a big bonus on top of the $50K each. Let them chill for about 6 months, and let's see if this pandemic is over and safe, and maybe International Fight Week, we run it back. I would love to see that. Let Figueiredo go to Brazil, let Moreno go to Mexico, and just chill out and not think about fighting for a couple months before we start thinking about the rematch. Now, that said, the UFC is a business. I'm sure they'll check in with Figueiredo. You ready to go? You ready to go? You ready to go? And I'm sure they'll try and maybe put Garbrandt in there as 1A if plan, their number one plan is obviously the rematch of Moreno, but if Moreno can't go because it did seem like he might have a forearm or something like that, then I think they have a suitable partner for Figueiredo in Cody Garbrandt. And now look at Henry Cejudo. He's peeking in too. You know what I mean? He's giving those, what do they call those little googly eyes on social media when they're like looking to see like, what do I see here? That has a name, right?
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but peaky eyes.
I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped for the flyweight division. I'm happy for those guys. It's not the deepest division, but soon it'll be up there the same way bantamweight is cooking pretty good right now and featherweight. So,
well, I mean, remember they did let go of some guys that had only like 1 or 2 losses. as well. Like they were just clearing room. We thought that it might be the end of the flyweight division. Cejudo was able to still keep it going. But I think Deiveson Figueiredo has really resurrected the division. I think he's a crazy that he actually took that fight, a month out from his last one. That just baffles me. In some ways, I think it's great, but I think it might have affected his performance. The 2 weight cuts back to back, and may have slowed down. What he could have produced if he had more time in between fights. I mean, you can't help but think that, right?
Right. They both slowed down, but Figueiredo definitely slowed down more. Now, one thing we have to give Figueiredo, he's a top-notch athlete who's got a second, third, fourth, fifth win, whatever that was, where you could see him get hit by Moreno. He'd get jabbed and an occasional kick to the body or taken down, and somehow, man, he could still come back and crack. That guy's got heavy hands. He's really, really athletic. So he might even be scarier with 6 months off. And now that experience of going 25 minutes against a Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno was throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him, and he couldn't put him away. I would hope that Brandon Moreno, if he gets 6 months, can also just lift a little bit, just get a little bit stronger, man, because he's got really, really nice technique. He can take him down. He's got great cardio. But if he could just crack a little bit harder and make Deiveson pay a little bit for keeping those hands low, who knows? We'll see. I can't wait to see it a second time. Can't wait.
Isn't that fun, though, that we're anticipating a flyweight title fight rematch? Like, that. When's the last time that happened? None of us could get up really for the Cejudo Demetrius Johnson rematch, but it delivered. It was a competitive fight, and Demetrius Johnson himself, one of my favorites. Like, when he was on the card, I was excited. Even if everybody was like, "Oh, I don't care what that," I'm like, Demetrius Johnson's fine. I'm in. Like, I was excited to see him fight. He was a draw to me. I mean, now we're bringing back interest.
He had to shake off a little bit of those early title defenses where he was going to decision and being so dominant. It was reminding us of those days with GSP where we were like, the night isn't ending with an exclamation point. But I think out of his last 5 title defenses, he wound up getting 4 finishes. So he started finishing some of these cats. He was showing he was head and shoulders above them all. He's 1-1 against Henry Cejudo. I don't know if we'll ever be treated to a third, because now he's over at 1 championship. Cejudo's retired. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think another thing that hurt Demetrius is he was just really a good guy overall. Like he kind of was a guy that punched the clock and then went home to his wife and kids. Probably has a Labrador Retriever and 2 nice cars in the driveway. Like, he was a man's man, and I think a lot of times when you register at the box office, you have to have a little bit of that more traditional combat sports. Like, I don't know, there has to be a little bit of that swag to you. Like, think about Ric Flair, and he's always talking about the suits, the $10,000 suits and the limousine rides, or Money May. He's always got cash on him. Or Conor McGregor, of course. He's always talking about how fancy his shoes are, with the different type of skin that they used on his boots or his belt or whatever, or his whiskey. Like, they always promoted something that was far above the normal Joe Lunchpail. The guy that orders the pay-per-view. We aspired to like be in their shoes for a night or for a day, to be able to crack like that in the ring, in the cage, and then go out and paint the town pink. Demetrius didn't really paint that picture. He was like, no, man, I'm just like you guys. I crack, and then I go home and maybe pop a beer and chill and melt in the couch with my lady, watch Netflix, go to bed, and that's it. You know what I mean? So does that register at the box office? Not always. But Demetrius is great. He's still number 1, by the way, on USA Today Sports and MMA Junkies rankings. Deiveson Figueiredo did not take him over.
Okay.
So he still holds that, and now he's got a defense against Adriano Moraes out there at 1 championship. Actually, it's not a defense. He's the challenger. Moraes is the champ.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see what he can do, and maybe at some point Figueiredo takes him over. But again, look at this. We're like 10, 15 minutes into it. We haven't left the flyweight division. That means the flyweight division is something right now. You know what I mean?
It is. It is. And I think Figueiredo kind of embodies what you're saying. I think over time, like, he's a guy, he's wearing a nice suits. He's got, he's bringing something different. It's right. Exactly. The shades. And that was really cool as well. Let's go talk about, what's in store for him in the future, man. Like, do you see this guy really propelling this division where even beyond Demetrius Johnson? And, what mistake do you think was the big mistake that he couldn't walk out with a W that last night or Saturday night, rather?
Davison?
Yeah, like what would you pinpoint?
Even with the point deduction, the judge Junichiro Kamijo, who I really like, when I listen to the scores a lot, I don't often go, "What's Kamijo drinking? What's he smoking?" I don't say that too often. He usually delivers a score that's similar to mine or similar with the majority. And for him to give a 10-9 to Moreno in round 5, I'm sorry, I just don't see it. If he gives that 10-9 to Davison has 2 scorecards from judges that show him as the winning fighter, and it would be a title defense and it would be a clear-cut victory. But Kamijo turned in a 10-9 for Moreno, and that produced another 47-47. Now, that said, Davison Figueiredo, if he doesn't get penalized that 1 point, then now we're not worried about Kamijo's card, but he did. But despite all that, it still should have been Figueiredo. Now, that said, Sean, I thought round 2 could be disputed a little bit. The significant strikes, there was only a difference of like 3, I believe. I thought round 3, which was the 9-9 round, could be argued that it was Moreno's round as well, even though all 3 judges gave it to Figueiredo. I saw a lot of credible media posting and tweeting saying 10-8 Moreno because he won the 10-9 and then they penalized Figueiredo the point. So I don't know. I mean, it's not up to us though, right? It's up to the 3 judges. They have the best seat. They're trained and they've got experience. A lot of these names, they've called a lot of fights. Dana keeps them busy. Scott Coker keeps them busy. So I don't like hearing they're boxing judges. Well, yeah, they were, but for many years they've been MMA judges too.
True, and Figueiredo, of course, many were expecting a finish. That's what I was going to say. Another point is he didn't get that big finish. Obviously we were used to seeing that 3 times in a row, and tough. Like I said, it's a tough opponent, Brandon Moreno. My respect to Brandon Moreno. In fact, like deep down, I was thinking like this guy's just like the classic underdog. Like I was kind of rooting for him to win this fight, and I was thinking, oh man, he's so close. But Davison, that 5th round, I think he did it. I think he got that fight, that round.
Dug deep, man. And for a second there, I thought it was that broken forearm. It was his left hand. It was his jab hand. And he wasn't throwing it. And I was telling Goze, well, then he should kick. He should load up on the right. But you just can't stand there for 5 minutes in a round that you think, I better win this round, otherwise I'm not going to win the fight. That's not the way to do it. And then towards the end, he was throwing it. So maybe he was picking his spots. But by then, he was kind of giving the round away slowly. With 30 seconds left, they locked up. And if he tosses Figueiredo and he gets that takedown, what happens then? I don't think that would have been enough to give Brandon Moreno the fight. But, I thought it would, but at the time, but when I looked over the scores, it wouldn't have mattered. So I don't know. Still, it doesn't take away from the fact that it was a great fight and it's a deserved rematch.
Definitely, we're looking forward to that, and that's stuff to watch out for 2021. And you did mention Cody Garbrandt, so this kind of puts a chill in his plans because he said originally Davison wins this fight and I get him in March.
Right, that's what he gave. He tweeted something like that.
Right.
What he was saying was that I guess he had some complications with COVID and blood clots, and
yes.
Most of the time when you hear about blood clots, you hear about the lower legs, the calf area. And he was saying it was in his bicep or something like that. But, COVID's it's a novel virus. So when you hear Alyssa Milano saying, I'm losing my hair, and Cody Garbrandt saying, I I got blood clots in my biceps and people complaining about their toes. Like I think they call them COVID toes. Nothing shocks me. You know what I mean? I just hope for that guy to shake off any long-term symptoms. Not just Cody Garbrandt. Obviously, anybody out there that's been infected with COVID-19. I want you to make a full recovery. But if he does, and most of these young athletes will, then sure, I guess. I mean, Dana seems committed to the rematch, but if Brandon Moreno wants to take some time off and let Cody fight Davison, I would support that because I think Brandon could easily just fight the winner of that fight. Now, Figueiredo would be the bigger fight, one could argue, but Cody Garbrandt's always been a pretty big star for the UFC. So who knows? You know what I mean? But my brother was saying, hey, look, what if we throw Moreno in there in March and he loses to Figueiredo again? I mean, now you've lost twice to the champ in title fights.
Right.
It's going to be a long time before you get that third shot. So let's slow things down and make sure you're 100% before your next title shot. You already did the company a favor with the 3-week turnaround. Now you dictate the terms when you're ready.
Right. Definitely. Well, let's move on to some other fights on the card, and I was really excited to see Kevin Holland get that big finish over Ronaldo Souza. Kevin Holland is looking really good, man, in that division and middleweight division. He is tough as hell. I don't really think, nothing from what I've seen shows that he has any chinks in his armor. I mean, he just seems unstoppable at this point. How do you feel about Kevin Holland?
I really like that guy. I told him many times when we've interviewed that one of the things that impresses me the most is the game is in slow motion to him. He is that comfortable in there. He doesn't seem to carry any nerves. He's actually really having fun while he's out there. He's not scared of the other man that's on the other side of the octagon. And I think that's major, man, when you're not stressing out about that. I mean, even the great George St. Pierre used to say, I hate fighting. I hate fight week. I hate thinking that I could lose. And Holland is actually going out there and dancing, and I think he was serenading the security guard on the way out, almost wanting to do a dual rap with him or, whatever the song was that was playing. He's having so much fun. And so when he's out there, I think he's just seeing everything. He's seeing everything. He's comfortable. He's got a good frame. As we all know, it just seems like when you're one of the taller guys for your division and you have that reach advantage, it seems to be a benefit. I mean, Alex Volkanovski would disagree. Henry Cejudo would disagree. There's a lot of smaller, compact guys that do well. Okay, I'm not saying that's the only way to succeed, but he looks really, really good, man. And now think about the confidence he has. He just mixed it up with Jacare Souza. Not prime Jacare Souza. I'll grant you that. He's 41. But still, he finished Jacare Souza, and he didn't panic when he was on the ground. When Jacare Souza was on top getting ready to slap him up, what did he do? From the bottom, he just said, pack! Right on the side of the temple, kind of rocked Jacare. Then he kind of scoots up a little bit. Boom! Delivers another one. Next thing you know, he's like, wait a minute. The roles are reversed. Jacare's falling back. And now I'm going to pounce on this guy. And he did. 5-0 in 206 days, 210 days. That's incredible. He didn't even need all 365 days. He might be the fighter of the year.
That's true now. And so what next for him? Like, would you line to match him up with Robert Whittaker at this point?
Robert Whittaker's in the pole position because he's a former champ. He's 10-1 as a middleweight. And, when you lose your title, but then you go out there and smack around Darren Till, and who was this other one?
Jared Cannonier.
Yeah. When you can beat two other top 10 guys, arguably top 5 guys, I mean, it's your shot. Dana White said it. He said, oh, boy, I got to convince Izzy to fight Whittaker. Whittaker's gone out there and gotten some wins. He was a champ, so we got to give him that respect. But apparently Whittaker wasn't ready to go, so Dana warmed up to Izzy versus Blachowicz. But at some point, Izzy, who's a very busy champion, will defend middleweight. Who will he defend against? Who's the prime guy? Well, probably Whittaker, but who's next? I wouldn't want to take a chance that if I'm Holland and I beat someone else and then Whittaker goes out there and fights someone else, guess who's still in the pole position? It's got to be Robert Whittaker. So what I would do is call out Robert Whittaker and say, I want to take everything you have, and make it so that it's now me versus Izzy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Definitely. Will Whittaker take it, or will he, stand by? That's the question.
Whittaker doesn't seem like one of those prima donnas who's more concerned about like what the other guy brings to the party. I'm sure his advisors probably put that in his ear, but I think he just like, oh, who? All right. I guess I won't be playing video games as much, for the next couple months. I'm going to train. I'm going to fight this guy, this, that, whatever. He kind of goes through the motions. But I don't think you got to respect 5-0 and coming off a win over Jacare. Because Whittaker was probably that guy. Not in 206 days did he go 5-0. But he went on a run that included Jacare. And that's how he got to that position. So I think a lot of these guys, initially, they can say whatever they want on social media. But when the cameras are off, the mics are turned down, I think they all come to the realization, I was that guy. I have to do this type of fight. If Israel's fighting Blachowicz, I'm not just going to sit around for 11 months. Sure, I'll take the Holland fight.
Definitely. I would be excited to see that. And for Jacare Souza, his long journey may come to an end as of this year. We'll have to see. Obviously, 3 losses in a row. UFC is announcing some budget. I'm calling them budget cuts, but call them what you want.
That's fair.
So,
I got to imagine that if they're paying Kevin Holland 80 and 80, and they don't have to pay Souza 150 and 150, yeah, sure, it's time to turn the page. Souza's given us everything he can, but if he just continuously loses and he's also getting his ass whooped, and people raise the question of aging fighters and how dangerous it can be, I think the UFC kind of puts that all in a blender and then decides if it's worth it to continue squeezing that orange, squeezing for more juice. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. With Jacare, does the middleweight division really need him? No, it'll survive. Would it be nice to keep him? Sure, yeah. He's still a quality fighter. He's still a top 15 maybe fighter. But I think if they can create room by bringing in a new flashy middleweight like a Shabazian or somebody else, then we'll squeeze out the aging, expensive veteran.
Yeah, I see that happening on multiple occasions. When we find out who's on those roster cuts, obviously we had Yoel Romero, Rachel Ostovich were the first victims of that, and then the wave is coming soon.
Yeah, Ostovich was 1-3, I think. So there wasn't too much to do there. But your Romero, who didn't get excited when Romero fought? And let's face it, man, he had a couple snoozers. There was times when if he wasn't exploding on you, he was just kind of moving around. We were waiting and waiting and waiting. But that's what made him unique. You don't want every fighter to be the same. You want different strategies, different approaches to the game. His was different, but he was 43. He didn't make weight a couple times, once for a title fight. And then, like I say, the Israel Adesanya fight, which he probably could have won if he put a little bit more thought into his strategy. That fight just didn't live up to what we wanted. It only had flashes of brilliance, but it wasn't a classic.
Yeah, I think we'll see what he does in Bellator, but moving forward, middleweight division is still really hot. I really enjoy it. And I think that's one thing UFC realizes now. When you have a title fight, every title fight should be big, should be huge. Flyweight to heavyweight, across the board.
I think we're going to get to that point someday. It's slow. It doesn't just happen overnight. I remember DJ and I forget. I think maybe Nunes and DJ. I forget. You just know that there's some champions out there that just weren't pay-per-view machines. So you almost had to put them on the same card to see if the two title fight approach worked. But after a while, I think Amanda's now 13-1. She KO'd Cyborg. Yeah. Now I think there's a little bit more like, whoa. I mean, there's a little bit more respect to her name. Will that continue to? I don't know. These would be the bigger fights when she could possibly sell, but Valentina, I think she's now on her 4th title defense or something like that. And she's, I mean, very, very marketable, speaks 3 languages, very, very pretty young lady. But yeah, some of them just take a while. I don't think Volkanovski's really much of a sell, honestly. So the UFC is always going to have some divisions that just they don't pop at the right time.
True. Next fight on the card, I want to talk about is a really exciting fight at the strawweight division. Dern and Janhirova. I hope I'm saying her name right, but listen, that was one heck of a fight. I mean, that would have been fight of the night if it wasn't for the main event, obviously. And those 2 women, much respect. I mean, to all the women fighters, like they go out there and they put it all on the line. Much respect to them. I'm a huge fan of theirs. I mean, obviously, what they do, but Mackenzie Dern gets it done again. And did you have any doubt in her in this performance?
That was my big bet of the night. Mackenzie Dern did cash for me, so that was good. And I've just been impressed at the way she's evolved her game. Her striking's coming along now, and for her, this is a world-class grappler who's won at Abu Dhabi at the highest level of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu worlds. I'm talking gold medals, and when she hasn't won a gold, she's usually medaling. So she's very, very legit. And, over time, there's been a lot of fighters that have come from that world who didn't develop a striking game. And you just thought, God, if they only had hands, if they only, like Royce Gracie, let's start with him, and Damian Maia. Maia developed a formidable wrestling game to complement jiu-jitsu. That's why he always had that top position. But Royce Gracie usually worked off his back. He had no time limits, and he waited for you to make a mistake. Now Mackenzie Dern's like, okay, at some point I'm going to kick you, and if you catch it and take me down, sure, let's do it. I may initiate a takedown against you. Oh, and guess what? I can crack. Under the tutelage of Jason Perillo, and I'm sure some of her other coaches, she's got a little power. Now, at first, it was very sloppy. It was big, winging overhands and wild hooks, and she still does it. But then she cleans things up a little bit and just throws straight punches. She's getting better. She's only 10-1, so it's not like she had a ton of fights. She's still only 27 years of age, and already started a family. I think a lot of female fighters, when they're in their late 20s and early 30s, they're thinking about wanting to start the family. I mean, Mackenzie's already had her kid. I don't know if she wants to have others, but I think she seems to be at peace. Married, she's making weight pretty easily. The night before, her game's rounding out, and it seems like she's getting by on the right card where there's not this tremendous spotlight on her that brings a ton of pressure. So good for her. Jandiroba is no joke either. I think she's going to do well in the division, but it was Mackenzie's night.
Yeah, it is as well. And Mackenzie, what she's been doing is just, making that weight, making her country proud. And, I think that spotlight's going to come right back on her. I mean, we've heard comparisons to Ronda Rousey. I think she's doing things the right way in terms of when Ronda kind of, stumbled later in her career. And we'll see, obviously she's her own person. As she said that in the post-fight conference. She's like, I'm not going to be next Ronda. I'm going to be Mackenzie Dern. But, the comparisons are there, and I feel like she has the ability to become a major star.
Yeah. One could argue that she is already, not on the level of Ronda Rousey, but a lot of people know who she is. I think she gets paid pretty well, too. And like I say, she comes from another sport where she did very well, top of the heap. So she's got some bright days ahead of her. Now, I don't know what she's like personally. I heard Ronda became very difficult.
Right.
And I think she just wasn't enjoying life, and the pressure just got to her. Then when she lost and people said some sort of a version of, ha, you lost, she did not take it well at all, because I think everyone bowed to her. Everyone threw roses at her feet. And I really think it went to her head. I don't think I see that with Mackenzie Dern. She seems to be pretty humble. Ronda just came around at the right time. I mean, she spearheaded women's MMA in the UFC. So who knows? Maybe I'd be an asshole too. You know, if I was young, making a ton of money, and you know, everybody loved me, and I was finishing fights in 13 seconds, I probably wouldn't be pleasant to be around either.
Plus, you're on Maxim magazine and Sports Illustrated magazine and
ESPN magazine,
Raj,
you know, all those movies that she did. So yeah.
But Jen Ropa, another note about her, she's a former Invicta FC strawweight champion.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she had, I think, a 3-fight stop there, became the champ, and they had to fill it recently. So I think she was 16-1 going in. But yeah, she had a good run at Invicta and now decent run in the UFC. I think she's answered the questions. A lot of the Brazilians, and not just them, some of the Russians, they'll come in with these 17-1, 22-0 records, and you're like, well, okay, but let's see what you do here, be it the PFL, be it Bellator, be it the UFC, you know, and then all of a sudden the questions start getting answered. But Jan Daroba looks like she belongs.
I agree. And then fight with
Janja Oba. I practiced it a few times because Anik and the boys kept saying it so often. Janja Joba, something like that. Now I'm fucking it up.
Yeah, I tried to say it when I announced it. I said Jan Gigoba or something. But next up we had, of course, Tony Ferguson and Charles Oliveira. I had picked Oliveira to win this fight. I don't know why. I just felt like that long record, you know, that long streak he's on, and just like his ability to find those submissions. That guy's a hunter right now in my book. In my book, he's a submission hunter.
Yeah. Oliveira's now 8 wins in a row? Is it 7 or 8? I'm not sure. But I think Saturday it became 8 in a row. He hasn't lost since the Felder fight in December of 2017. That's what I call a quality loss, by the way. He gave Felder fits that night.
Yes.
But, you know, he slowly dusted himself off. He's been winning fights. He's been making weight. And now when you can hang a skin on the wall that says Tony Ferguson, I mean, now you're a real contender that gets treated seriously, you know, and now you have the streak and the big name. Now, does that get him a title shot? Probably not. If Khabib's still champ, then you got to believe Conor Poirier winner gets Khabib. If Khabib's really retired, then you got to believe Conor versus Poirier is for the title. Now the question is, who gets the winner of that fight? Well, it could be argued that Oliveira might get it, but he's going to have to fight off, you know, a few other guys, including Rafael dos Anjos, who's now back in the division. He's a former champ. He looked good in his last fight against Felder. So, and then if a guy like Justin Gaethje or Dan Hooker, they come back in, they get in the win column. They're pretty popular fighters. They're players. So we'll see.
Yeah, we also have, you know, Michael Chandler, who has yet to make his debut, so that would be an interesting fight. Or the fact that they would probably want to bring someone to Fight Island to substitute in case one of those two got hurt or COVID, you know, with McGregor and Poirier. So maybe Oliveira, if he's willing to make weight again a month after his fight, could slot in as that possible replacement.
That would be about 5 weeks during the holidays, and it's a lot of travel. You got to imagine he wants to go back to Brazil for the holidays. Then he's got to come back to Vegas, and then Vegas over to – actually, I think when they go to Fight Island, there's direct flights from Brazil. So I take it back. But it's still a lot of flying. I don't know. I think he's better off just probably waiting at home for the winner. But there's no guarantees, man, because it's what have you done lately? It's a sport.
Oh, I know. If McGregor gets that huge knockout, boy, everybody's going to call for a title shot, you know. And then same thing with Poirier, you know. Poirier can get
tough. That'll be tough, and I'll tell you why. Right. Because if McGregor knocks out Poirier, we'll say, then Dana's going to push really hard for McGregor versus Khabib. Khabib won't want to do it, but if Dana can sweeten the deal somehow, you know, now Khabib's in the promoting business, and if Dana can somehow put together some sort of a business plan, some sort of a payout that includes a ton of money and a ton of love for your promotion, maybe he can talk Khabib into it, right? And even though McGregor got submitted, he went 4 rounds. There's a lot of bad blood, and then McGregor will have beaten Cowboy and Poirier. If Poirier wins, I think it happened 1 year after the McGregor fight. It just happened last year, like 14 months ago. And it wasn't really competitive, man. No disrespect to Dustin, but it really wasn't competitive. And neither was Conor McGregor. But McGregor's this huge, tremendous superstar. He doesn't need to be as convincing, to get these title shots. So would Khabib fight Poirier? I mean, maybe I might be wrong, especially if Poirier fucks Conor up. Then to beat Hook and Conor and Poirier, if he could really promote the fight, he might be able to get Khabib out of retirement. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't even know if Khabib would get up for Oliveira. Conor kind of had a little history with RDA. That's where Red Panty Night originated. So maybe fight RDA if Conor beat Poirier, if Khabib was retired. I don't know. That's that big puzzle that we got to figure out, I got to imagine at this point Chandler's going to fight Gagey. If one of those guys shines, maybe they're back in the loop. Who knows, man? 155 is nuts to try and predict.
And Ferguson, how do you feel he's going to bounce back after this, if at all?
That's tough. Now he's 36 or 37, and I think more than anything, he needs time off. But we're also talking about a guy that's getting up there in age. So what do we do? I think if the UFC really wants to protect Tony, I think they would encourage him for a fight that maybe isn't some young gun that's looking to take his head off. I don't know. Let me think about it here. Tony would never look for protection, but he's going to have to fight a big name, whoever it is. And at that point, because they pay him pretty good money.
Yeah.
But even if Tony wins, he's not Tony of about a year ago. He's had the 2 losses. Tony would need 2 big wins. I would say the best thing for Tony is to fight the loser of Poirier and McGregor in July or August. That gives him adequate rest and adequate drive to get back in there and compete again, But it's going to have to be a big name, and it'll probably be a big name coming off a loss.
True. We'll see. I mean, I'm excited to see him, rejuvenated, ready to go back in there again, and I mean, he still is a top guy in that division.
I gotta rewatch the fight, but I didn't see that he did much on Saturday. I mean, Oliveira was just leading the way, leading the dance the whole time, and Ferguson never got to really try and cut him. No takedown attempts. I don't know. That fight either went by quick or I was really buzzed, but I just don't remember seeing many flashes of brilliance from Tony. I remember Tony would get, sometimes if he could get you down, that front headlock was really nice, that Darce. If he was up against the cage, he'd throw some crazy elbows. I don't know. Nothing ever really got going.
No, I mean, he did have that nice defense or counter of the armbar. It was actually, he just lasted, to the end of the round. I mean, that made the highlights. So it'll take minutes.
Yeah. Who knows what happened there, man? I don't know if maybe he had to have popped the ligament there or something. I couldn't believe he didn't tap to that.
Me neither, man. That was sick. I mean, that just shows you his determination. Even in a losing fight, he kept going, until he was finally finished.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a huge win, and I mean, obviously, that was not a finish; it was a unanimous decision, but one-sided. You know what I mean? I felt like Oliveira could have taken it any time.
I think he tried, and that sub was really nice. I thought he was just going to ride it out, and all of a sudden he switched to an armbar so quick. But it was still a definitive win over a guy that once had a 12-fight win streak. So he gets a lot of praise. He's got a win streak now himself, and Oliveira is definitely, one of the top 5 guys in that division.
That's true. And so the last fight we didn't, we'll circle back and go over before we end this is that Cyril Gane and Junior Dos Santos. And how did you feel about that fight, man?
I didn't like the ending sequence. I thought the point of the elbow hit the back of the head, and I don't know. It felt like something like that not only I felt, but my co-host felt, Twitter felt like it didn't get as serious of a look. JDS was complaining, maybe I'm too used to watching football and seeing all the different angles. If a guy stepped out of bounds, if a guy got the first down, if a guy made it, got a touchdown or whatever. And it seemed like the decision was accepted and that was that. Now, that said, Junior wasn't helping his cause. He was very hesitant. Gane was throwing some big uppercuts. Gane was throwing some big overhands. And Junior wasn't getting much going in the fight. So I don't know if it changes the result, even if that blow is deemed, if he's penalized or scolded or whatever. Junior's getting older and his chin it doesn't hold up. He's taken a lot of damage over the years. It's not just the KOs of late. I think it's still those Cain Velasquez fights, So a guy like Alistair Overeem, who Manny said he was chinny, he figured it out, and now he's on a 4-fight win streak. So those heavyweights I'm not as bothered as much by upper 30s, lower 40s. If they still have the drive, do it. But you got to come up with some good game plans. And once you're in there, you got to do something, man. You have to lead the dance. You have to make them react off what you're doing. And the minute that you're tentative, it can go bad for you. Cub Swanson, he's mid-30s.
Yes.
And he's coming off a serious injury. And even though Pineda was kicking that leg really hard, and Pineda can punch really hard, Cub did not wait, and he started throwing nice jabs, nice punches. And then all of a sudden, he flipped the script, and now he had Pineda backing up. He hurt him. He finished him. He was surgical. He used all his experience, but he didn't hesitate. I'm sorry, but I've been seeing a lot of guys hesitate, in their fights. And I think that's a sure sign that you may not be mentally there. Like, physically, you can still perform, but you're just not pulling the trigger. That can be dangerous.
Definitely. And then obviously the fight before that, another huge knockout we'll go over real quick was Fiziev versus Moicano. I know it looked controversial, like as Moicano was complaining about it, but if you see like where the camera was positioned, as Dana White mentioned, the guy had trouble, getting back up to his feet, and that was a huge win for Fiziev.
It was, and usually I'm on the side of the fighter. Let it go as long as possible. Give the fighter every last chance. But in this case, I thought it was an adequate stoppage, and it was validated when Moicano was trying to even stand upright, and you could tell he wasn't there. His face was telling you, "Yeah, I'm still good," and "Why'd you stop it?" or whatever. But his legs were shaky. He almost missed the chair. So the call was definitely right. However, when Moicano did go down, he wasn't just like roadkill. He wasn't just splattered on the ground. He did seem like he knew where he was and how to react. And but yeah, I mean, the fight was over. Even if the ref makes it go a little bit more, Aziz was ready to deliver more ground and pound. So maybe he saved him from taking those shots. Moicano, still young. Maybe he can turn it around. He needs time off, but that guy was a killer a few years ago. But he's taken some KOs that are bad, man. And I don't know. I don't know what to say. But when you take some time off, heck, at least you protect your standing with the UFC for a little while. Milk it a little bit, and get better. Recover from your concussions, and then come back, and hopefully you got something left in the tank. But a lot of these guys and gals, they want to just get back in there and right the ship, and if it doesn't go well, and boom, they're gone. It's done.
Definitely. Well, George, I appreciate you again on Fightlete Podcast with our special recap segment, Talking Shop with Gorgeous George. And tell us again about MMA Junkie. But before you do, tell us holiday plans. Like, what is your traditions the holidays. I mean, we got NFL action, reaction. UFC takes a break after the 19th for almost a month. So what is in that downtime, what do you occupy yourself with?
That's a good question, man. So my San Francisco 49ers are out of the playoffs. They went to the Super Bowl last year, but they just got sieged with injuries. They're 5-8. They're out. I'll still cheer for them, but it won't be the same. USC Trojans are 5-0. They're behind in the count in that the Pac-12 started their season later. So you got teams that are like 10-0 or 9-1, and I don't know that USC can get into any of the big bowl games. I think there's 10 less bowl games this year. I'll probably watch a lot of college bowl games just to enjoy that.
Yeah.
I'll always enjoy the NFL because I love to bet the NFL. So even if it's not my team, I still love watching those athletes compete. Manchester United, those guys occupy a lot of my time. English Premier League, I love it. The NBA season, I guess, is going to kick off, but I don't know. It seems like so close to the previous season that I'll probably let them get going slowly. But the Lakers are my team, so it'd be sweet to see them go back to back. They replenished the cupboard. We lost guys, but we signed a couple guys, so it'll be really cool to see if they can go for a historic repeat. And as you can see, sports fills up a lot of my time, but regarding Christmas, man, that's usually when I'm tacking on another 5 pounds from eating a lot of good food. But I don't know. I think I really want to protect my parents through this pandemic, and I'm not sure that I'm going to be there for Christmas. I think we're just so close to these vaccines that if we really, really tighten our D, like if we prevent D on the COVID for another 3 months, we'll be good, man. We'll be good in the second quarter of 2021. We'll all be healthy and safe, and then we'll make up for some lost time. You know what I mean? I think my focus is just to be safe. As much as I don't want to get infected, Sean, I don't want to infect anybody. Who knows? Maybe I'm asymptomatic. Maybe I get it, don't even know it, and then I get too close to somebody. I don't want to infect anybody, so I don't know. I'm just going to try and do my part.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I'm going to enjoy some pro wrestling. I'm actually going to go back and rewatch some of these crazy fights like Weili Zhang, even this flyweight fight. I mean, I like to recap, and review them in my mind, before the end of the year is done. I'll take my top favorite 5 fights or 10 fights and even get caught up with Invicta. I think, I didn't mention it earlier, but I think Kayla Harrison is probably the top contender outside of UFC.
Fight. She's got a fight coming up, right? I think against
Titan FC
for PFL. Yeah. So she's staying busy. That's cool for PFL to let her do that. I think she can be a big star, 2-time gold medalist in judo for America. Now's got a belt over at PFL, and she's really, really charming, man. I've interviewed her up close before, and she's just, I don't know, she really lights up the room. So I could see her being a big, big star if she eventually makes her way over to the UFC. Don't discount Bellator. They got the great Chris Cyborg over there. They got some quality 45ers. So maybe they scoop her up, but Amanda Nunes, she just carries that GOAT status. Now they're teammates, by the way. Apparently they're really cool, and I think they know if they have to fight, they will. No, it's just business. It's not personal. But I don't know. I'd love to see her fight against Amanda Nunes, but I think she better hurry. I think Amanda Nunes probably wants to retire earlier. Than most people think.
Yeah, and I actually was at her MMA debut at PFL.
At Kayla's?
Yeah, Kayla's MMA debut. Cool. It was at the PFL in Chicago, 2018. So, but that's about it. Yeah, that's about it, George. I appreciate you again. Tell us how to check out your podcast again, man. And we appreciate you always, MMA Junkie Podcast Host, gorgeous George, here on Fightlete. It's always a blast to have you on.
Thank you. Mondays and Thursdays, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. You can catch us live. All the info is at MMA Junkie. We do a preview, and then it's got the links that'll take you to a website called Sportscaster, and that's where we do our live shows Monday and Thursday. or you can just subscribe to the podcast via Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We record at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, but it's available for download within an hour or two. And then we, Goze and I still do a lot of interviews, video style, kind of like how you and I are doing.
Yes.
Because of the pandemic, we're not at our studio at Mandalay Bay, but we can connect this way. So catch a lot of our work on MMA Junkie. A lot of the recaps that they do are based off of our interviews. If you want to see the full interviews, you can catch them on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/MMA Junkie Video. And Sean, thanks for having me, man. I really had a good time.
Yeah, happy holidays, man, to you and your family. Hopefully everybody stays safe. And hopefully we're back into it soon, after all this stuff.
You too, my man. Happy holidays.
Take care, brother.